I have two great guests to talk about fireworks safety and enforcement, Central Mason Fire and EMS and Shelton Fire Marshal Mike Patti, as well as the Shelton Police Chief Darrin Moody. Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Jeff, how are you?
Doing well. Good to see you here and talking fireworks.
Yes.
And things get dry and things get out of control. We have had a fireworks ban in the city of Shelton for a few years now.
A few years now.
Things still a little confusing for folks, so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, especially when it comes to in city, in county, and things like that. So first things first, Darrin, tell me about what happens if someone is caught lighting off fireworks in the city limits.
Well, Jeff, it's a misdemeanor to possess or light off the fireworks in town, so they can be cited. Technically, they could be arrested. But generally, what we try to do is just educate and warn.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the reality is half of the people doing this are kids who are, directed by parents. We don't want to go out and start writing, 10, 15-year-old kids citations for fireworks. But it is a safety issue. It is a safety hazard. And, one of the things I noticed when I came here was they're illegal in the city, but there's so many crossings in the city of county to city that you can literally stand on one side of the street and be county and another side of the street and be city.
Yeah.
And within the law. And furthermore, the reservations of tribes sell fireworks that, I'm telling you, coming from California, I'm thinking those are bombs. Those aren't fireworks.
Yeah, some are pretty big boomers.
Yes.
That you can get there. Mike, talk to me a little bit about how the city is doing, heaven forbid, if there is somebody shooting off, Roman candles or whatever, the dryness of the city right now. Could we see big fires if these come out and hit some of these trees?
Well, we're a lot, I guess, less dry now than we have been in years previous.
Okay.
But take a look at your yards. I mean, the grasses are still starting to turn brown, so there isn't as much moisture right now than there was, say, a month ago. We're still dry. Not as dry as we have been, but we're still seeing the brush fires. We're still getting the grass fires. So yeah, the threat's still there. Not as predominant as it was in years past.
The other thing that I think can be kind of confusing for folks is you'll go to stores and they will have things that, in my mind, are fireworks, but they're like
The
poppets
little poppers.
and things like
Right.
that. So, I mean, you're right. It has to be an educational campaign. It is very hard to explain all this stuff.
Right. The poppers are okay. The poppers aren't considered fireworks.
Okay.
The state doesn't consider them, so therefore neither do we, and we allow those. But the problem is that on the seal on the box says approved fireworks.
Yeah.
That's where it gets confused. But like the chief said, we would much rather educate and tell people, be careful what you're doing and err on the side of caution.
We are starting, you'll start to hear things. If there is a neighbor or a neighborhood and you're hearing fireworks shot off in the city limits, what are some of the steps the citizens can take?
Well, unless it's an emergency, call a non-emergency line. Don't tie up 911 with, hey, there's bottle rockets or firecrackers going off out front. 911 is for emergency purposes, and try not to tie that line up unless it is an emergency. I encourage neighbors to get outside and talk to their neighbors too as well, and let them know. Sometimes we get calls from neighbors that know each other, and you think, well, can you just go outside and say, hey, I'm trying to sleep. I got to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow for work or whatever. But we'll do the same. We'll go into the neighborhoods. The calls will come in. I get emails every year when this comes up and people talking to me about, we'll just go out and write them all tickets. Just because you make a law doesn't mean it's going to stop.
Sure.
We have speeding laws in this state, and we're not going to stop speeders. It's more of like we said, education and informed people knowing that you can't light fireworks off in the city limit. And there's no way that the 3 Shelton officers assigned on 4th of July are going to be able to answer 150 calls for service and go out and arrest 150 people for putting on fireworks.
Yeah. One of the other things, and maybe you guys can speak a little bit about this from being first responders and on the front lines, but it has only been recent in the last maybe 10 years or so that people bring up the conversations about no fireworks, and is to respect the PTSD of veterans and things like that. They hear the large booms, the explosions, and could have flashbacks and things like that. Have you guys known folks in your jobs where that has been an issue, and is that something that we should also be talking about like this?
Absolutely. I mean, not only that, the effect it has on pets. How many of us has dog
Right.
or cats that just go crazy when the boom starts out there? If your dog or cat is extreme into that, I'm sure you can talk to your vet or go to the store and they have, relaxing blankets for dogs, relaxing medication.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have, an autistic population out there. Loud noises.
Sure.
I know people have seen kids or adults with headphones on at loud areas. So it does have an impact on everybody else. We all love fireworks. As a kid, I loved them, and I still do. But you also got to respect the rights of others. That, I shouldn't have to keep my neighbor up all night long listening to me because I want to light off fireworks.
Yeah. Outside of the city limits, Mike, I know as you work with Central Mason Fire and EMS, there are some different guidelines and regulations. And without trying to muddy this conversation up too much, can you give me some of the basic pieces of information people need to know who live outside the city limits in Mason County?
Well, there's on the website for the state fire marshals has a list of the approved state fireworks, and the list is too long to go over here on the radio. And then there's the fireworks that are sold at the tribals, which don't even match the list that's on the state. People need to be mindful that if they buy them on the tribal lands, they need to stay on the tribal lands. If they come off tribal lands, they're illegal to possess on state property. That's a whole different ballgame. So we have tribal lands, we have the unincorporated areas, and we have the city areas. So
do you work with the sheriff's office or state patrol on not checkpoints, but something similar to that? If you see a car leaving an area that was selling illegal fireworks, are there things in place that you can stop the person just on suspicion, do you know of, or no?
Well, there is certainly provisions in place to do that, but it's a budget and staffing issue, and there's certainly higher priority issues for the county and the state patrol to cover than chasing somebody off of tribal lands.
Sure.
So we hear about it all the time. Well, why don't you stop these people from coming off tribal lands? What do you want them to do? Take care of DUI cases, or stop somebody who has a case of fireworks in their trunk?
That's a good point.
It's a matter of priorities for law enforcement, and to tell you the truth, the staffing just isn't there, neither for the state, the county, or for our city.
And the reality, Jeff, is I'm not so sure that'd be within the law. Of just because you stopped at a fireworks stand at Squaxin or Skokomish and I see your car driving away, I don't know that would fit into probable cause for a stop.
Oh.
Because it's legal to buy on that tribal land. And there is a gray area as to where tribal land stops, where county starts, where city starts. So, it's ironic, too, that I think it was 2 years ago that it was so dry around here that Squaxin Island tribe sold fireworks, but said you couldn't light them off on tribal land.
Right. It was pretty dry. I remember that.
And you're selling these bottle rockets and explosions and then telling people, but don't light them off. So, the one good thing about this area is Forest Festival every year has an incredible fireworks show.
Yep.
I mean, I think Hood Canal, Alderbrook puts on something up there. Is it Thunder on the Canal,
yeah,
maybe?
on the 3rd.
Isn't it? Right.
So there are places to go watch fireworks nearby. And they are fun to watch. They're a good time. But again, not just the fire hazard, but the people hazard. Every year we hear of different people, losing body parts, injuring themselves permanently, or worse, dying from fireworks. So
the funny thing is, I always hear, well, why can't I let my child just hold a sparkler, a harmless little sparkler? And they don't understand a sparkler is nothing more than a 1,800 to 2,000 degree piece of wire. I'm not sure I would want my child to be holding that, because all they have to do is hold on to that hot piece of wire, and they're disfigured for life.
I remember a news story that showed them with a lit sparkler that was either going or had just finished, and they put it up against a raw steak, and it cooked. I mean, it seared it there where that line was because it was so hot.
Yep.
Yeah, that is very dangerous. That's really changed my mind on sparkler use and things like that.
Yeah.
So again, it's a misdemeanor within the city limits. If there is non-emergencies, folks can call the non-emergency phone number line, save the actual life-threatening emergencies to 911, be cognizant of your friends and neighbors and pets and relatives, and there's plenty of better ways to celebrate the 4th with your family with these large shows.
Absolutely.
Like
Have
that.
the big picnic, have the barbecue, but don't use the fireworks.
Don't use the
Leave
fireworks.
the fireworks to the professionals.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If I can take a couple seconds too, we start getting phone calls all the time about when's the burn ban going to happen.
Sure.
And we have the burn ban year round in the city, but we're going to start looking at burn ban restrictions in the county starting on July 6th
Okay.
at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that'll pretty much take care of everything except campfires, recreational fires. So there'll be no more debris burns in the county starting about the 6th at 8 o'clock.
Okay. Jeremy Hicks was in earlier this week talking about some of the language changes on that to make
Right.
it a little easier to understand. So maybe we'll get you in next week
Okay,
after those
sounds
come in.
good.
Very cool.
Sounds good.
Chief Moody, Chief Patty, good to see you guys.
Good seeing you.
Can I
Thanks.
give one news update,
Oh,
Jeff?
please.
It's off this topic, but yesterday and the last couple of days in the news, Shelton, we had a missing man
Yeah.
that came across. We have located the vehicle in the county. The county is working now on a search and rescue mission for that gentleman.
Okay.
So if anybody says, I've seen the car, we have the car. We don't have the subject. He's still missing. So
Okay.
we appreciate any help from the public on that one.
There's some information about that on the website as well. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sirs. Good to see you.